She was born to hunt the dark. He was born from it. When Lyra, a fierce werewolf warrior, spares the life of a wounded vampire in enemy territory, she sets off a chain of events that threatens to unravel the ancient war between their kinds. But Valen isn't like the monsters she's been taught to hate, and as the moon rises and blood is spilled, a dangerous bond forms between predator and prey. Now hunted by her own pack and haunted by a curse tied to a dying vampire king, Lyra must choose loyalty to her kind or a love that was never meant to survive the night. Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The night was thick with the scent of pine and the copper tang of blood. Lyra crouched low on a moss-slick rock, her golden eyes narrowed against the darkness. Fog slithered between the trees like pale serpents, swallowing sound and light alike. The full moon hung swollen above the canopy, its pull humming in her bones, teasing the beast within. She exhaled slowly, the air clouding before her lips. The scent was fresh, vampire, but not the wild, feral kind her pack feared. This was different. Controlled. Cold. Purposeful. He was near. She dropped from the rock, landing silently on the loam below, claws half sprung from her fingers, muscles coiled tight. Her boots barely whispered as she wove between black trunks, each footstep measured. Somewhere deeper in the thicket, a twig snapped. Lyra paused, ears twitching. Another sound. Breathing, shallow, ragged. And then a voice like velvet torn on glass. Are you going to kill me, or keep circling like a wolf chasing its tail? She froze. The voice had come from the clearing ahead. Lyra stepped forward, parting the branches. Moonlight poured in, silvering the clearing like spilled quicksilver. There, slumped against the base of a tree, was the vampire. He was beautiful in the way fire is, dangerous and hypnotic. His coat was torn, stained with blackened blood that shimmered faintly. A gash ran down his collarbone, and his exposed skin gleamed like frost in the moonlight. Yet his silver eyes held no fear. Lyra bared her teeth. You're trespassing. This forest is claimed. The vampire lifted his chin. I wasn't aware I was still in one piece long enough to trespass properly. Don't play coy. You're bleeding across 3 territories. What's your coven doing this far north? His gaze flicked upward toward the moon. I'm not with them anymore. A lie, perhaps. Or truth edged with more danger. She stepped closer, ignoring the voice inside screaming to strike. Her claws stayed half-formed. His scent was wrong. Not the rot of death, not the arrogance of blood-drunk fiends. Something else. Something she didn't yet have a name for. Then you'll bleed alone, she said. Better than pretending I belong to monsters. That stopped her cold. Not the words, but the way he said them. Like he knew. Like he'd bled for it. Their eyes locked. Predator to predator. Prey to prey. Something ancient passed between them, like a tremor under the skin of the world. And then Lyra did something she hadn't done in years. She turned her back on the vampire and walked away. She didn't kill him. Not yet. Lyra didn't sleep that night. Not even when the moon dipped low and her bones ached from resisting the shift. She lay beneath the twisted roots of an ancient oak, ears alert, heart pounding a rhythm she couldn't quite name. She should have killed him. That's what the pack would have done. Strike first, questions never. And yet she hadn't. By morning, she'd convinced herself it was strategy. Let the leech bleed out. Let the forest finish what she started. But that night, her feet carried her back to the clearing. The vampire was still there. Barely. He dragged himself closer to the stream, one hand trailing blood into the water. His coat was gone, revealing a torn linen shirt clinging to his ribs. The wound on his shoulder was still open, the blackened edges pulsing slowly like the heart of a dying star. When she stepped into view, his eyes snapped open. Thought you decided I wasn't worth the trouble, he said, voice rasped raw. You're not, Lyra said flatly. She tossed a wrapped bundle at his feet, dried herbs, a strip of smoked meat, and a flask of river water. But I'm not letting you rot here. Your stench will draw worse things. The vampire arched a brow. Charity from a werewolf. I must be hallucinating. Lyra knelt beside him, careful not to touch. This isn't charity. This is control. I choose who dies in my forest. And you've chosen me to live? For now. He smirked, a slow, tired thing. I'll try not to disappoint you. They sat in silence for a while. He chewed the meat like it was ash in his mouth, and she crushed the herbs against a flat stone, applying the paste to his wound without meeting his eyes. His skin was cold, not death cold, but something deeper, like winter held in flesh. You have a name? She asked finally. Valen. She looked up. Just Valen. He glanced at her, one corner of his mouth quirking. I lost the rest when I left my coven. Titles are for those still playing their roles. And what role were you playing? Monster, he said without hesitation. Lyra stared at him, unsure if she felt fury or pity. Maybe both. She sat back on her heels and studied his face, elegant, blood-streaked, hollow-cheeked. A predator, yes, but not the kind that thrilled in killing. No, there was weariness in his bones. You should hate me, he said softly. You know what I am. I've killed what you are. You're not the same. How can you be sure? She didn't answer. She didn't know. Not really. But she remembered his eyes in the moonlight, how they had not begged for mercy, only watched her, calm and unafraid. Not arrogance, not even resignation. Just truth. You'll rest here tonight, she said. But come morning, you move on. Valen nodded, leaning back against the bark. As you command, Lady Wolf. Her eyes narrowed. Call me that again, and I'll let the crows finish you. He chuckled, low and cracked. Duly noted. And yet, Lyra didn't leave that night. She kept watch, not for him, but for what might come for him. And when the wind howled through the trees, she howled back, a low warning to anything listening. This one is mine. The full moon rose like a silver blade over the treetops, cutting through the clouds and cleaving something deep inside Lyra. She gripped a tree trunk, fingers digging into the bark until it splintered under her nails. Her breathing was shallow, ragged. The change was coming, faster than she was ready for. Her control, usually a clenched fist of iron, had begun to slip like sand through her fingers. Not here. Not now. She stumbled away from the clearing, deeper into the woods, away from the vampire. She could feel him, Valen, watching her. He hadn't left that morning like she told him to. She'd woken to find him still there, a little stronger, a little more whole, as if her presence alone had tethered him to the world. And it scared her. Her skin itched. Her muscles twitched, bones grinding as the moon took hold. She collapsed to her knees near a fallen log, letting out a choked sound between a growl and a scream. Her breath steamed in the cold air. Then a voice. You're shifting, Valen said, stepping into the clearing. Go, she hissed. Now. He didn't move. I said go. Her voice broke, her eyes flashing gold. Fur prickled at the edges of her skin, her teeth lengthening, spine arching unnaturally. Her transformation had always been fluid, but tonight it was violent. Valen knelt a few paces away, unarmed, unafraid. You're fighting it. You're hurting yourself. No, she growled, curling inwards. I'm protecting you. The last thing she saw before the wolf took over was the flicker of sorrow in his eyes. Then blackness. She woke in the dirt, damp leaves clinging to her skin. Her limbs ached, her throat was raw, and blood, not hers, coated her claws. Her heart sank. She scrambled upright, panting. Valen! There was no answer. Panic surged, hot and wild. She followed her own trail, claw marks on trees, broken branches, until she reached the edge of the stream. Then she saw him. Valen lay slumped against a stone, pale and still, his coat shredded. Blood stained the grass around him, but it wasn't flowing now. It had already dried. Valen, she whispered, voice trembling. His eyelids fluttered. I'm alive, he murmured, barely audible. Though you're heavier than you look, wolf girl. She exhaled in a rush and fell to her knees beside him, clutching his shoulder. I warned you. He opened his eyes. I told you I wasn't afraid of monsters. I am one, she whispered. He looked at her then, really looked. No, you're just fighting yours harder than most. They sat in silence, the early morning mist curling around them. Lyra stared at her hands, still half-shifted. The guilt gnawed at her. I could have killed you. But you didn't. You should be dead. I've already died once, Lyra. His voice was steady, and it stilled something inside her. This feels more like living than anything I've known in 100 years. She didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to handle the weight of his words. or the pull they stirred in her chest. So instead, she leaned against the stone beside him, exhaustion overtaking her. And there, beneath the hollow moonlight and the scent of old blood, two creatures not meant to belong to each other closed their eyes. Not as predator and prey, but something in between. Something beginning. By the next night, the forest was no longer quiet. There were whispers in the wind of a vampire seen in Moonfong territory, of a traitor among the wolves. Lyra heard the rumors long before they reached her alpha's ears. And she knew with bone-deep certainty that time was running out. Valen followed her at a distance now. He kept to the shadows, not out of fear, but respect for her space, her world, the precarious thread they balanced on. The wound in his side had healed almost completely, but the hunger had begun to surface in his eyes. She could feel it, like a current under his skin. "You need to feed," she said, keeping her voice low. Valen leaned against a cedar tree, arms crossed. "I told you, I won't take from humans. And I'm not strong enough to hunt the others anymore." Lyra stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Then what are you waiting for?" His gaze met hers. Slow. Intent. "You." She stiffened. "I can't offer that," she said flatly. "Not without losing more than blood." Valen smiled, soft and bitter. "Then I suppose I'll keep starving." They said nothing more. The silence between them was louder than words. That night, the pack called a hunt. The alpha, Rian, stood atop the sacred stone with his gold-threaded cloak sweeping the earth, his voice a thunderclap through the glade. "There is a parasite on our land," he growled. "A vampire. One of them has dared to cross into our territory, drink from our soil, breathe our air. This is a challenge, one I will not ignore." Lyra stood among the wolves, her face unreadable. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to find Valen, to warn him, but she stayed still. "We hunt at dusk. All of us," Rian continued. His eyes locked onto hers for just a moment too long. "No exceptions." She found Valen at the river. He didn't look surprised. "They know." She nodded. "You need to leave. Tonight. And what about you? If I run with you, I'm done. They'll hunt me too." "I'm already hunted," Valen said. "At least we'd be in it together." Lyra clenched her fists. Her whole life had been rules, discipline, control. And now, here he was, the thing she was supposed to hate, and the only one who looked at her like she wasn't broken. "I can't abandon them," she whispered. "But you already did." She flinched. His voice hadn't been cruel, just true. Then behind them, the snap of a twig. They turned as one. From the trees, a figure emerged, Bren, Lyra's second in command. His eyes widened as he saw Valen, saw them together. Rage bloomed in his face. "You," he growled at Valen. Then to Lyra, "You're with him? You brought this thing into our woods." Lyra stepped between them. "He's not like the others. He hasn't harmed anyone. You lied to the pack. You lied to me." His voice cracked. "What else did you give him?" "That's enough," she snapped. But it wasn't. Bren lunged. Valen moved to defend her, but Lyra was faster. She met Bren's claws with her own, the clash ringing through the forest like steel. It wasn't a fight she wanted, but it was a fight she couldn't walk away from. Blood hit the moss. Bren fell, winded, his shoulder torn open. He stared at her like he didn't recognize her. "You chose him." Lyra's voice trembled. "No. I chose me." By dawn, she was gone. Exiled. Marked. She left behind her pack, her rank, her family. All for a vampire who might not even survive another week. But as the sun broke through the trees and Valen walked beside her in the shadows, something in her heart felt free. The old life had shattered, and something new was beginning to bleed through the cracks. The human towns near the border were a haze of noise and smoke, their lights flickering like distant stars in a world Lyra barely understood. She hadn't walked this far from the forest in years. Every scent was wrong, every sound sharp. Concrete under her boots felt like betrayal. Valen moved like a ghost beside her, slower now, quieter than usual. He was starving. She could see it in the way his shoulders hunched, how his jaw clenched every time a human passed too close. He didn't speak much anymore. He barely looked at her. They'd found a half-abandoned motel on the outskirts of a gas station. One room, no questions asked. Lyra had tried to sleep, but the silence between them pressed too heavy on her chest. She woke to find the bed empty. "Valen," she whispered into the dark. No answer. She followed his scent, barely there, faint as candle smoke. He hadn't gone far. But when she found him, everything changed. He stood behind a closed mechanic's garage, crouched low, a body limp in his arms. A man, young human, slack-jawed, neck bloodied. Lyra froze. Valen looked up, eyes glowing faintly red. Not the silver she knew. Not the calm, quiet strength. No. This was hunger made flesh. She didn't speak. Not at first. He gently laid the body down, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He was dying already, he said, voice low, hollow. OD'd in the alley. I felt his heart slowing. You still drank. He turned to her, the shame written deep into his face. I had to. You said you wouldn't. I said I wouldn't feed from the living. You said you wouldn't feed at all. I lied, he snapped, sharper than she'd ever heard him. I lied to you because I wanted to be better. But I'm not. I'm this. She took a step back, breath catching. You're changing. I'm losing control, he growled. When I left the coven, I burned the blood ties. I swore never to take the king's mark. But to survive, I drank from one of his nights. Just once. And now it's inside me. What is? The king's curse, he said quietly. It doesn't just feed you, it claims you. Lyra stared at him, her stomach twisting. The red in his eyes. The tightening of his aura. She had sensed something changing but denied it, refused to believe it. Can it be undone? She asked. Valen shook his head. Not without breaking the bond. Not without killing the one who holds it. Then we'll kill him. Valen's laugh was soft, almost tender in its hopelessness. You don't understand. He isn't just a king. He's old. Older than your entire bloodline. He doesn't just drink from humans, he drinks from death itself. Lyra stepped forward, grabbed his collar, yanked him close. Then we go to war. His eyes searched hers, for doubt, for weakness, for fear. But she held his gaze, fierce and unmoving. You're not a monster, Valen. Not to me. He closed his eyes, forehead pressing against hers. I don't deserve you, he whispered. She answered without hesitation. Then be worthy of me. That night, they burned the motel down behind them, a symbol, a severing. No more hiding. No more silence. Only blood, thorns, and the road ahead. Together. The rain came hard and fast as they crossed into the Deadlands, a stretch of wilderness so cursed that not even the wolves claimed it. Here, the trees were brittle skeletons, stripped of bark and color. The earth was pale, the sky always gray. No birds sang. No insects stirred. It was the place where lost things went to die. It was also where Valen said they might find answers. They walked in silence, cloaks soaked, boots sinking into the mud. Lyra watched him from the corner of her eye. Valen's face was drawn, his movements slower, but more deliberate, like something inside him was tightening. Not just the hunger. The curse. How long do we have? She asked as they made camp beneath the ruins of a stone bridge. He didn't look at her when he said, until I stopped choosing. Lyra sat across from him, knees pulled to her chest. Then we end it before that happens. Valen gave a tired smile. You say that like it's simple. It is. We find the king. We kill him. He met her eyes. You still don't understand what he is. Then show me. That night he did. Valen took her wrist gently, murmured something in a tongue long dead, and pressed his palm to her chest. Lyra's breath hitched, and suddenly she was inside him. Not in body, but in memory. She stood in a grand cathedral carved from bone and shadow, lit by braziers of black fire. Velvet banners hung from the high arches, dripping with runes. And on the throne at the far end, a figure. Tall, pale as marble, eyes gold like burning coins. The vampire king. His voice echoed like thunder in a tomb. What do you offer me, child of dusk? Valen, younger, unscarred, knelt before him, trembling. My oath. My strength. Anything but my soul. The king laughed, slow and terrible. Then give me your blood, and I'll take the rest in time. Lyra staggered back into her body with a gasp, her heart pounding. That's what's in you, she asked. Valen nodded. And it's growing stronger. Then we don't have time to plan. We act. He looked at her, something fragile in his expression. If we do this, there's no going back. You'll be hunted by more than wolves. The vampires will come for you too. Let them, she said. I'm done running. He stepped closer. You'd risk your life to save something half gone? She took his hand. I'm not saving a vampire. I'm saving you. The next morning, the deadlands shook. The sky split in two with a scream of thunder, and from beneath the ruined cathedral at the edge of the world, a bell tolled, once, twice, then silence. The king had felt them, and he was calling them home. The bell echoed for 3 nights. Each toll rippled through the land like a curse. Mortals felt it as a chill. Wolves felt it as dread. But to vampires, it was a summons. A call to kneel or bleed. Lyra and Valen didn't kneel. They gathered what few allies they could. A band of exiles and oathbreakers, outcasts from both clans. A blind werewolf who had once hunted kings. A vampire seer who had her fangs shattered for defying the coven. A rogue druid who stitched spells into her skin. Misfits. Ghosts. Rebels. They met in the hollow of a dead mountain, lighting no fires. There were no speeches. No promises. Only weapons passed from hand to hand, and glances that said we may not live, but they will remember us. Valen stood at the edge of it all, his back to them, face turned to the wind. Lyra stepped beside him, heart heavy but sure. Are you ready? She asked. His silver eyes flashed red, but he nodded. If I fall, you won't. If I do. She grabbed his face, forcing his gaze to hers. Then I'll follow you into hell. But we end this together. He didn't kiss her. But gods, he looked like he wanted to. They struck at dusk, under a blood-colored sky. The Vampire King's fortress wasn't a castle. It was a graveyard carved from obsidian. The gates opened before them, as if welcoming their doom. Then the fighting began. Steel against claw. Spell against shadow. Screams tore through the stone halls. Lyra moved like lightning, a blur of fong and fury. Valen fought beside her, swift and silent, a blade of pure shadow. They reached the throne room after hours of slaughter, soaked in blood, their forces thinned. And the king was waiting. He stood atop his dais, unbothered, his crown gleaming like a fresh wound. So the mongrel and the traitor come to die. Lyra stepped forward, unshaken. We came to end you. The king grinned, and darkness bloomed from his spine like wings. Try. The battle that followed wasn't a fight, it was an unraveling. He moved like smoke and struck like thunder. Lyra was thrown across the chamber, bones snapping. Valen lunged, blade drawn, but the king caught him mid-air, fingers curled around his throat. You think she makes you strong, the king hissed. She makes you weak. Valen struggled. Blood dripped from his eyes, his nose. She made me human. The king drove his hand into Valen's chest. And something broke. Lyra screamed, not in fear but rage. Her wolf surged forward, not just bones and fur, but something new. Something divine and monstrous. A silver beast wreathed in moonlight. She struck the king like a star falling to earth. They tumbled across the chamber. Steel clanged. Magic shattered. And then Lyra drove her claws into his throat, and Valen, with his last strength, plunged the blade through the king's heart. The scream that followed tore through the mountain. Darkness poured from the king's mouth, not blood, but shadows that screamed. And then he was gone. Ash. Silence. Valen collapsed. Lyra caught him, arms trembling. His eyes fluttered. Did we win? She nodded, tears in her throat. We did. He smiled, weak. Good. I was worried I'd die for nothing. You're not dying, she whispered. Not now. Not after this. But his body was cold. And fading. No, she said. Don't you dare. Don't you. And then stillness. He didn't breathe. Valen's body lay limp in her arms, pale and cooling, as the ruins of the Vampire King's throne crumbled around them. Dust filled the air. The others were gone, dead, fled, or broken, and all that remained was the stillness of grief. Lyra sat on the cold obsidian floor, holding him. For the first time in years, the wolf inside her went quiet. Not stilled, silent. There was no rage, no fight left. Just sorrow. Come back, she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. You promised. She wasn't sure how long she stayed like that. Hours. Days, maybe. Time melted in grief. Her tears had long since dried when she heard it, a faint, rhythmic thud. She thought it was her own heartbeat, echoing against stone. Until it wasn't. Valen's chest rose. Once. Twice. She jerked back, wide-eyed. His skin was warm. Not cold. Not vampiric. Warm. His eyes opened, not red. Not silver. Something in between. A molten gray, pulsing faintly with gold. Lyra? His voice was rough. New. She stared. You're alive. I shouldn't be. No. You shouldn't. You shouldn't be this. He sat up slowly, holding his side. The wound was gone. His skin had color. And he flinched at the light filtering through the broken dome above. Sunlight. Valen raised a hand toward it and blinked. He wasn't burning. Lyra's lips parted. You're not a vampire anymore. I'm not anything, he said, breathless. She reached out, touching his chest. His heart beat strong beneath her palm. No, she said. You're everything. In the weeks that followed, stories spread. Of a wolf with moonlight in her veins and a man made of dusk and flame. Of the death of a king and the birth of something neither vampire nor beast. Lyra never returned to the pack. She didn't need to. She and Valen made a new place. Not hidden, not ruled, just theirs. And when she asked him once, by firelight, what he saw in her the first time they met, he said, I saw someone who could kill me, and chose not to. She smiled. You were lucky. No, he said. I was yours. And so the werewolf and the vampire walked into the dawn together. No longer cursed, no longer hunted. Just free. Just in love.